So, government debt is very different from yours and mine. The main way in which it is different is that government debt is triple A rated. In other words, when the government borrows money, anyone who is lending the government money has the closest thing they can to a guarantee that the government is going to be able to pay that money back. So it's very safe. There's a very low default risk. And consequently, the government can borrow at very low interest rates, which means that there's very little borrowing cost over time. Whereas if I borrow money via a credit card, I may pay 20 something or 30 something percent interest on that. Meanwhile, the government can borrow money for 1, 2, or 3% interest, let's say. Now, in the long run, the government does not need to entirely pay off the debt, but there are a lot of benefits that go along with that. Chief among them is the fact that if you are not borrowing money, you are not having to pay the costs of borrowing that money, namely, you're not having to pay any interest on that debt. However, as long as the economy is growing faster than the debt is growing, then the debt as a percentage of GDP is actually shrinking. Let's illustrate this with a personal example. If I have $5,000 in credit card debt, but I make $100,000 a year, the ratio of my debt to income is 5%. But if that same credit card debt were to grow to $6,000 while my income doubles to $200,000, then the ratio is only 3%. So even though my debt has increased, I'm making so much more money that as a percent of my income, my debt has actually gone down. This is what is sometimes called growing your way out of debt. But on the flip side of the equation, that the debt doesn't necessarily need to be completely paid off. At the same time, if you let the debt get too large as a percentage of GDP, it can really ruin an economy. And one of the big reasons for that is because the interest costs of that debt grow and grow and grow. And in some cases, it can get to the point that the government doesn't even have enough revenue to pay off that interest. And so some of those interest costs are simply rolled over into new debt. And at that point, the debt begins to grow exponentially, and there's little chance of ever being able to pay it off.